Hey everybody, Aaron Cowan, Sage Dynamics. In this week's questions answered video, I'm going to answer all the questions that just didn't qualify for a full video. So we've been doing the questions answered thing for a while now, and I get dozens, sometimes less, sometimes more questions a week. Some questions are too in-depth to really cover in just like a talking format, just filming, talking to the camera versus going to the range and actually going through some instruction or some principles and some techniques. And then there's some questions that I either don't have a strong opinion on, my opinion's very succinct, or there's just not enough content there for a full-length video. So I figured I'd knock out a lot of those in one video. So the format's pretty simple. I'm going to address the question, give you the question, and then I'm going to go ahead and give my answer and or opinion on the topic, rapid fire style. What do I think of 300 Blackout? 300 Blackout is, it's still a bit of a boutique round. I don't own one. I don't use them. I have used them. Other people, I've seen them in classes occasionally, and I know friends that have them. My personal feeling on it is there's just not enough real world data out there for me to really take a serious look at the round. I'm not saying it's a bad round. I'm not saying it's a good round. I'm saying that there just isn't enough information for me to go ahead and start stockpiling 300 Blackout. It does suppress very, very well. I personally tend to think of it more as a pistol cartridge, like a Magnum pistol cartridge versus a rifle cartridge, just based on the performance I've seen. Your opinion may vary, but yeah, that's kind of my feelings on 300 Blackout currently. They obviously will change in the future. What do you think of gun bunnies? I don't. To be perfectly honest with you, it's marketing. And there's been studies, in fact there was a recent one that just came out that shows that sex doesn't sell like they say it does. So these companies using women strictly for the sake of selling sex in relation to firearms, it isn't necessarily as effective as people think it is. That's kind of how I feel about gun bunnies. Now, don't confuse gun bunnies with females who happen to be attractive but are also shooters, because those are two separate categories. A woman is a woman, they dress differently than we do. Just because a chick has a gun and she's attractive does not necessarily make her a gun bunny. That being said, there's plenty of chicks out there who have very, very mediocre skills, if any skills at all, who are literally getting lauded with products and merchandise just because they are attractive. But those are two totally different categories, and my feeling on gun bunnies is it's just something that exists, and I don't really have an opinion. What do you think of Voda Consulting? I don't go to the circus. What do you think of Sonny Pazookas? No comment. What do you use to film your videos with? There's actually a small story to that. I've always been a fan of photography. In fact, I did try my hand early on once I left the military of being a photographer. Not working for a newspaper or anything like that. I actually tried to be an artist, if you will. I did a lot of black and white on 35 millimeter. Actually had a few gallery showings, but I was too young and too lazy to really keep up with it. But photography's always been a hobby of mine. And that kind of segued into when I started filming videos. Currently I'm using a Sony Alpha 7S as my primary workhorse for filming, but I also have a Nikon D7100 and a Canon D60. So I'm a connoisseur of all brands. They all have their pros and cons when it comes to filming quality video, because you can have good content but not good video, and if you don't have good video, some people aren't going to pay attention to it. And although I do the YouTube channel for free, I pride myself in making sure my work looks as good as possible, and since I still have kind of that appeal to that artistic flair, just going off that background of that photography things I did early on, I want my videos to look good. I like the cinematography feel from time to time. What do you think of skeletonized AR-15s? Where did I put? Oh, here it is. I don't. What do you think of bump fire stocks? What do you think of dual illumination RMRs? Dual illumination are cool because they don't require a battery, and some people's biggest concern with the RMR is the battery, even though it's been fixed with the Type 2. At least tentatively fixed. So far so good. My feeling on the dual illumination, I had one for a while. The dot sizes tend to be a little bit larger. I had the 9 MOA, and under weapon lights they completely wash out, and then you're back to iron sights. So if it's a hobby gun, or it's a gun you're only going to shoot in the daylight, only at the range, then great. But if it's a gun you're going to use or might potentially use for any kind of self-defense situation, I would stay away from the dual illumination, just because of the issue of under any directed light in a low light environment, you're going to lose you're going to lose your dot. So it kind of defeats the purpose of the system to begin with. What's your preferred eye pro? I use Oakley, the new 2.0 flak jackets, I believe. I have them 2 pairs, one for obviously the sun and one clear lens. They work really well between night vision. I don't have any fogging up issues, even in very humid environments where, you know, the old nasal passages are putting out that humidity. I've always had really good luck with Oakley. I've been using them for a long time. There's plenty of great eyewear out there. My personal feeling on eyewear is you only get 2 peepers, and it's very hard to fix these things if you break them. So you should invest in high quality eyewear. Those $19.99 sunglasses from the gas station just aren't going to cut it. Those $5.95 in the clear blister package eyewear you grab out of a bin at the gun range might not cut it. Yeah, they might work, but I'm going to go with something that has a proven track record of providing eye pro for all spectrums of eye protection, not just shooting, but, you know, skiing, airborne operations, watercraft, general outdoor use, everything like that, to include, you know, construction and things like that. So for me, it's Oakley. And again, there are other high quality brands out there, but the question was, what eyewear do I use? I'm an Oakley guy. What do you think about super rigid EDC belts? I had one of the original Aries gear. I believe it was the Ranger Enhanced, and it's a great belt. However, it's pretty thick. So thick that when you take your pants off, it looks like someone is still wearing them. To me, that's a little too rigid for my personal taste. For an everyday carry belt, I'm assuming what we're talking about is concealed carry. I use Blue Alpha gear. I love their belts. They're rigid, but they're not so rigid that it creates wear problems or clip problems with attaching accessories and things like that. So if you like the rigid belt, that's great, but I think that really comes down to a personal preference thing. If you know somebody's got one, go ahead and grab it. Try it on, wear it, obviously if you're the same size, or get their opinions about them. If their lifestyle is very similar to yours, especially if it's someone you work with, they do a lot of the similar things, you might get more feedback than asking me, just based on what I do for a living versus what you do for a living. What do you think about lasers on handguns? I'm actually probably going to address this in depth on a range-centric video in the future. Lasers do serve a purpose, but their usefulness is pretty small. I would not forgo an RMR or a weapon light for a laser. That's just not something I do, especially the weapon light topic, because lasers don't illuminate in the same way that a light does. And the idea that a laser is going to scare someone off is presupposing that that person hasn't had guns pointed at them before. I would be willing to venture, willing to bet, willing to guess that if you have to point your gun at another human being, chances are that person has had guns pointed at them before, and they're far more comfortable being on that end of the gun than maybe you are being on the other end of the gun. So lasers can give you knowledgeable point of aim, point of impact if they're zeroed correctly and you understand the parallax issues that come from lasers. But again, I'll address it more in depth in a video in the future. They do have a place. It's just not something I'm going to get and forego what I would consider more reasonable, or for my personal taste and the way that I teach people, more reasonable methods of aiming. So I think that covers it for this first volume of all the questions that couldn't fit in a full video, and we're going to put them all in one. Probably going to work on that name because it's a little long, a little drawn out. I'm Aaron Count with Sage Dynamics. Train accordingly.